Hello everyone, my name is Cornelius Nomeshi. I'm a medical doctor from Ghana. I completed my MPH degree at the Harvard THM School of Public Health this past summer. Last year, during my application process, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Banda, who is a friend and a senior colleague. Dr. Banda's knowledge and experience of the graduate application process made it easier to write an outstanding personal statement, also aim for the right test course and finding the right people to write recommendation letters for me. He also gave me a really good insight about the funding landscape available for me for my education. I was able to get admission into most of the top schools that I applied for, including Hopkins, Columbia University, Boston University, and then Harvard University. Yeah, so if you are actually looking to advance your studies and you're looking for a good and friendly coach, I'll recommend no other person than Dr. Banda.
Hi, my name is Dr. Banda Khalifa. I'm a physician and a current PhD student at the world's #1 School of Public Health, the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I also earned a dual Master of Public Health and Master of Business Administration on a fully funded SOMA Scholarship here at the Bloomberg School after gaining admission to Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and the rest of the top schools. So, tell a friend to also tell a friend. Come along with me by subscribing to this channel as I share all the techniques and strategies for putting together a strong application package and hear from experiences from some of the most successful international scholars. I'll also invite program directors, admission committee members to share insights into what it takes to get into their program.
Good morning, everybody. Once again, I'm here with you. My name is Dr. Banda Khalifa. I'm your host for today's event. Today, we are going to explore the field of business education. So we're going to look at Master of Public Health, and then those who are interested in Master of Business Administration and Master of Public Health will also benefit immensely from this conversation. We are lucky to have one of the most seasoned persons in the field of graduate school admissions, specifically for MBA and dual MBA and MPH. If this is your first time of joining us, this is the Scholars Table. We are also live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. If you're having issues streaming on any of these platforms, kindly switch to the other platform. As I said, we are very lucky to have a senior assistant director of admissions and recruitment from the Johns Hopkins University Carey Business School. Without wasting much time, let me invite Michael Cuneo to the program. Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Great. You've been working with Hopkins for quite some time now, and prior to Hopkins, you also worked in other capacities as, you know, recruitment officer or recruitment personnel. Just by way of introduction, can you just walk us through your role and your experiences with the Carey Business School?
So I started out as a admissions coordinator at Carey Business School, which was basically an office manager for the admissions office, working in all kinds of aspects, keeping the admissions office going. And I started becoming curious about what the admissions officers did. And I convinced the director of admissions to let me give that a try. And that was 12 or so years ago. And I've been doing that ever since. And
Amazing.
right now I am, uh, I work primarily with the full-time MBA degree, um, doing recruiting and advising for people, international applicants to the MBA degree, um, everywhere in the world except for India and China, and American students who live west of the Mississippi. And I
Mm-hmm.
also work in our dual degrees, the JD MBA and the MD MBA applicants.
Great, great. So I'm quite sure most of the requirements would probably be similar when it comes to international students. I would like us to go through first the application process, and talk briefly about financial aid and how the program differs from other programs in the US and elsewhere, and also the job prospects, because we understand graduate
Sure.
school is it's a huge time and financial investment. Before we dive into the application process itself, how does the Carey Business School differentiate itself from other business schools? I know currently we were designated as a STEM. The full-time MBA was designated as STEM, and also the dual MPH MBA is also designated as STEM.
Mhm.
How do you think this it's differentiating Hopkins from other schools?
Well, I want to touch on that again. That was a big, exciting news back in December. The the state of Maryland, office that is in charge of such designations, designated both the MPH and the MBA at the same time as STEM, which is important for international students, and I think we'll touch on that why later when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about um, work after graduation. But some other ways that I think the MBA at Hopkins is sets itself apart from other MBAs. One of the main ways is through experiential learning. Uh, Students in the MBA program do 4 experiential learning projects throughout the course of the MBA, one per semester. And those experiential learning projects are real life projects in the sense that you're working with um, organizations, corporations, companies, or
Mm-hmm.
other types of organizations outside of the school on real life, real projects with real deliverables. They're like having small internships, mini internships built into their curriculum. And, when the MBA first started out, years ago. There were 2 of them, and when we revamped the MBA a couple of years ago, after 10 years of the MBA, we decided, hey, we have 2, why not 4? So to even get more experiential learning, there's nothing better than applying what you learn in the
Mm-hmm.
classroom outside of the classroom in real life situations.
Yes.
And in addition to what is required, there's tons of what we call co-curricular experiential learning that students can do, um, besides what's required as far as experiential learning in consulting and tech and other ways in the Baltimore area to complement that, to do real life experiential learning with all the different organizations that are here in Baltimore, and tapping into the healthcare and engineering and other ecosystems here at Johns Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is one of the key differences in our MBA. And another important difference is the culture, the environment. The MBA the class size is small. So our goal every year is to have about 70 to 75 students. So that usually shakes out to be on average between 55 and 85 every year.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really creates a very tight knit, collaborative community um, where students have great relationships with each other and with
Yeah.
their professors. And that makes a huge difference in culture and a very an environment where you can take the initiative, where you can really be involved, where there's a lot going on and many opportunities to
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such an exciting experience. I mean, I remember when I was there, one thing that stood out for me is the diversity, as he spoke about. The different people you are likely to meet, both the full time and the part time, um, people with different backgrounds, all sort of experiences coming together to enrich the program. I would like us to move closer to the application and admission process. So for international students who are looking at applying to the program, how is the application process like, especially for the full time
Sure.
MBAs?
Our applications are almost the same for every program at Carey. Doesn't matter which program you're applying to. It's basically your resume, uh,
Mm-hmm.
2 essays, which you will be given the prompts for in the application. We don't take statements of purpose or generic essays. There's very specific
Okay.
topics you have to um, respond to.
Mm-hmm.
We take your transcripts, not directly if you're an international applicant who went to school outside of the US. We require what's called a course by course credential and evaluation from from a credential evaluation agency. And the instructions for that are on the how to apply section of the website. And that's kind of something you want to really pay attention to at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because you won't go to the admissions committee without that having been done. And that can take a little bit of time. And so it's important to be on top of that. We require the GMAT or GRE
Mm-hmm.
unless you are eligible for a waiver. And with the MBA program, the full time MBA program, that waiver is based on your years of professional experience and your academic background.
Okay.
And we require the TOEFL or IELTS unless you're from a English speaking country. And we have a full list of those, what we consider English speaking countries, on the website. And, a lot of sub-Saharan African countries like Ghana, Nigeria, we actually do consider English speaking countries. I know some US schools do not, but we do. So don't assume. Check the list.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It is a pretty substantial list, and or if you went to school where in an English speaking country,
Okay.
so then you can waive the TOEFL or IELTS or PTE. Otherwise, we require one of those 3 tests. Then we require one recommender, just one. You can
Okay.
have up to 2, but we only require one. When you do the application, you just give us their name and email address, and then we contact them directly to fill out a brief evaluation of you, and then upload a letter at the end of that. And then when all that's said and done, you can be invited for a interview. The interviews are via Zoom. They're with your admissions officer, and that is all. That's pretty straightforward.
Wow, that's like a whole package of the
Yeah,
real graduate school experience. The one thing that I particularly liked was the fact that you don't have to submit three recommendation letters, because I know sometimes it's difficult, especially for students coming from Africa.
that's
It's
for us
difficult.
too. We don't want
Yes.
to read three recommendation letters either.
Yeah, and the waivers, the GRE waivers. What specific backgrounds are you looking for?
So for the full-time MBA or any of the dual degree full-time MBA related dual degrees, that would be based on you have to have 3 years post bachelor's degree professional work experience, and we're very
Okay.
strict about that. It's got to be 3 years after you received your bachelor's degree, and not 2 years and 10 months, not experience from before your bachelor's degree. It's we have to have a cutoff somewhere, and it's so
Mm-hmm.
we're very strict about that. And so that's the work element. The academic element is you have to have a 3.0 or better on a US grading scale. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be determined by your course by course evaluation if you went to school outside the US. Um, 3.0 or better in your bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have a bachelor's degree and another higher degree. So if you have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, or a bachelor's degree and a PhD or a JD or something like that, then the GPA actually doesn't matter. So it's that 3 years of work experience plus the academic element together.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds fair. So if someone has, um, let's say 5 years work experience and gets a master's degree, it doesn't matter the field of the master's degree.
Doesn't matter the field. We don't have prerequisites for what your educational background was in.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, that helps clarify a lot of things. Um.
And anytime you have a question, please just contact your admissions officer and say,
Mhm.
"Hey, do I qualify?" Don't assume you qualify.
Yeah.
Don't assume you
You
don't
don't
qualify.
qualify.
And
That.
please don't assume you qualify and just submit the application, because then you're
Mhm.
going to get, if you don't qualify, you're going to get a little email from us saying you don't qualify, and you're going
Yeah.
to have to submit the GRE or GMAT.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
That's so true. So I know you spoke about the school not requiring the standard statement of purpose that we most programs
Sure.
ask applicants to write. In what way do you think, or to what extent do you think extracurricular activities influence the decision making process? Because I
They
know, for
don't.
example, if I'm applying for an MPH, that is, my statement of purpose is where I want to really speak about what I've done, apart from my core professional work or my core academics.
Sure. So our essay is our first essay is almost a statement of purpose, but
Okay.
it's fine tuned to basically ask why an MBA and how an MBA is going to um, assist you with your career
Mm-hmm.
at Carey. So it's kind of us fine tuning a statement of purpose for you. And when it comes to extracurricular activities, they don't really for us. They don't really add anything to your uh, application,
Okay.
to be honest.
All right.
Whether you volunteered somewhere, unless it's really high level volunteering, it doesn't help. It's okay to put that on your resume, or if it fits into one of our other essays. So we have an
Mm-hmm.
essay about our values being giving back to the community. So if you fit that into one of those essays in a long way,
Yeah.
that could be useful for one of the essays. But in general, extracurricular activities in the sense of, I was on the I was vice president of the chess club as an undergraduate. That doesn't really add substance to your overall application. So
Okay.
I use this analogy or example. If you volunteered once a week at a animal shelter, that's not a something that adds much to your overall application or resume.
Mm-hmm.
If you went out there and built an animal shelter and in a sustainable way, and it still exists and it's still going, that's a great example of
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship and initiative and the kind of thing that would add substance to your um, resume. That kind of difference is
Yeah.
volunteerism or entrepreneurship that were that would be of substance versus just volunteering. That kind of volunteering is or extracurricular activities are great for when you're in high school for undergraduate
Mm-hmm.
applications, but not so much for
For
graduate
graduate level.
applications. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. So for international students, do you have any idea about the acceptance rate? Um, uh, Particularly
I
for
don't.
students. Mm-hmm.
We don't really keep track of acceptance rates or publish them, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
put it this way. Our goal is always to be 50-50 domestic, international.
Okay.
And generally, it actually works out to be more international students than domestic students. So it often works out to be 60% international to 40% domestic.
Domestic.
We treat we don't we treat everyone exactly the same. Hopkins is a private school,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't have to treat anyone different when it
Different.
comes to admissions or scholarships or tuition. Tuition's exactly, as you know, tuition's exactly the same for international students as it is for domestic
Mm-hmm.
students.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's treated exactly the same,
The same. Interesting.
except for
That's
those differences in the application that I
yeah.
talked about. But actually,
Yeah.
if a domestic student went to school outside of the United States, they would still have to do a course by course evaluation. So they actually are still treated the same.
Mm, awesome. That's interesting. So, viewers, if you're now joining us, I'm on live with Michael Cuneo, who's a senior assistant director of admissions at the Johns
Cuneo.
Hopkins uh, Carey Business School. So you're welcome. Keep your questions coming. It's everything business school. If you're thinking of an MBA or you're thinking of doing a dual MBA or an MPH, just push your questions and we'll try and answer them at the end of the program. So I want us to talk about financial aid. I think we've exhausted the application process very well, and viewers will be able to discern the materials that they need in order to put their best foot forward. So one thing that is very difficult for international students, it's most times how to fund their programs.
Sure.
And I don't know the policy with business schools. I can't tell whether they offer the same level of scholarships as School of Public Health. But what scholarship packages are usually available for international students at the Carey Business
Sure.
School?
So again, we treat everyone the same, whether they're domestic or international. But when you apply, you're also applying for all our scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a few scholarships. So our main source of funding is the Dean Scholarship.
Okay.
And then that's what most people who receive a scholarship would receive. Then there is the Carey Business Fellowship, which is we that's very competitive. Only 8 people a year receive it. It's a full scholarship plus a stipend,
Mm-hmm.
but that's also open to anyone. There is Forte Fellowships, which are for women in business. There is the Reaching Out MBA Fellowship for people in the LGBT community. So those are the fellowships and scholarships that are open to anyone, despite where they live or where they're from.
Okay.
The rest are for people specifically like from Baltimore, because we're really committed to helping people in the Baltimore community,
Mm-hmm.
and some medicine related ones. But if you go to the main uh, page for the full-time MBA, you'll see a little link at the very top right-hand corner under at a glance that says exclusive scholarships, and that'll give you an overview of all the scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
So besides that, you'll find that the best place to get loans are Empower Finance and Prodigy. Those are the 2 companies that were founded by international business students,
Okay.
because it used to be impossible for international students to get loans without a U.S. cosigner.
Mm-hmm.
For international students to get loans, and then the other sources are always, I recommend people to go to Education USA to get advice for their country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Education USA, if you don't know it, is they're like a little mini department of the U.S. State Department, and
Mm-hmm.
their mission is to help international students come to the United States to get an education. So they have presences in pretty much every city in the world,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much, where there's a U.S. embassy presence. And you can look them up and find out where they are in your city, and then go get advice about scholarships, grants, loans, funding
Yeah.
specific to your country, and find out advice and help that's specific to your country for funding. We are very generous with scholarships for the MBA program. Um, Technically, they are merit based, but we do also, in the back of our heads, take into account things like how expensive it is for people from around the world to
Yeah.
come to the US for education, how
Mm-hmm.
expensive tuition is at Johns Hopkins, exchange rates, things
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely aware of that when we're awarding scholarships, even though technically things are not um, need based, because that would you'll find no graduate school um, financing is need based in the U.S. pretty
Mm-hmm.
much,
Mm-hmm.
even for domestic students.
I
It's
see.
graduate school's hard, it's expensive, and we do our best not to make it so. But when you're going through the process, you should not assume you're going to be one of the ones who's getting a full scholarship.
Yes.
You should
Yes.
be working very hard throughout the whole process to be identifying other methods of funding from all over the place.
Yeah.
You should be cobbling together as many ways of funding as possible. Because even if you have a full scholarship, you've got to need funds to live on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
very
you're going to
true.
have to identify where those are going to come from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I mean, your application, it's also serves as you applying for a scholarship. You don't have to
Yes.
submit any different application form.
Nope. You don't have to
Um.
submit any different application form.
Okay. Do you have an idea about the average scholarship that a typical international student gets?
It
Um,
varies from year to year, but I can say that about 80% of all 85% of all MBA students receive some sort of scholarship.
oh wow, 85%.
Yes.
Wow, that's really generous. Both
So chances
domestic.
are you will get a scholarship, but how much, that's
Yeah,
the
that's that. Yeah, that's also true. Okay, so this scholarship is like the 85% is both domestic and international students.
yes,
Oh,
85% of all students get a scholarship, some sort of scholarship.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know. Um, okay, so I would like us to talk briefly about the program itself.
Hmm.
How is Carey's MBA curriculum different from you know other business schools? I know, like for example, we have a lot of um, collaborative departments that are very close to the car business school. How is the school taking advantage of that? For example, if I'm a student at a car business school, am I allowed to take courses at a Bloomberg school?
You are. So you can use your electives to do what we call cross interdepartmental registration, and you
Mm-hmm.
can take courses at the School of Public Health, the School of Engineering, the School of Advanced International Studies in DC, any school at Hopkins. Now, I will caveat that with sometimes it can be harder to get into really popular classes,
Mm-hmm.
if
Yeah.
not impossible. So we can't guarantee that you will get into any class that you want at another school, but
Mm-hmm.
and the class has to be, somehow related to um, an MBA. You can't take basket weaving or take a dance class at Peabody.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so those are the two caveats. But yes, definitely, we encourage that.
Okay. I think that's really good to know. Um, are there any unique focus areas in a car business school that is not available elsewhere, or any specific concentrations that are not common in other business schools?
We don't do, as you know, we don't do concentrations. We have
Mm-hmm.
the two pathways.
Mm-hmm.
You choose one of two pathways, and they are health technology and innovation, and analytics, leadership, and innovation. So those are the two pathways you choose from. Now you can use your electives to focus in on more traditional areas like finance,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
marketing, and that sort of thing. But it's really those pathways that are going to drive your curriculum. Um, the curriculum, no matter what pathway you do, is going to have a lot of analytics, because that's what employers want out of MBA graduates,
Yeah.
is a lot of skill in analytics.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. So, I mean, it's been an interesting conversation. I would like us to take a couple of questions from our viewers. I have Richard. Richard Wassa wants to know whether there is an application fee waiver.
So the how I work application fee waivers is you do the entire application and you think it's 100% complete. You shoot me an email
Mm-hmm.
and um, I'll give it a quick check. And if it is 100% complete, I will waive the application fee um, on the back end and then let you know that you can uh, then submit it without paying the application fee.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
That's
So
my way of making sure you submit a complete application.
application.
Yes.
Okay, Richard. So as you've heard, you can actually request for application fee waiver, but you should um, make sure that your application package is complete. Once it's complete, you send an email to Michael, and he will look over your application and then see whether you whether he can grant you an application fee waiver. Um, that's great. Someone wants to know whether any particular field at all can apply for an MBA.
Absolutely. We have no requirement for what backgrounds you come from. I've had people from every background imaginable work and study wise successfully apply for the MBA.
Great, great, great. All right. So I would like us to explore a little bit about the job prospects, especially for our international students. So, as an international student coming into the US, it can be quite challenging and sometimes very daunting on people. What kind of services are available for international students at the Carey Business School, or they all have the same career services that every student have access to?
Every MBA student gets a career coach
Mm-hmm.
who is there to help them navigate the search for internships and jobs after they graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with our incredibly large international population, um, they are very attuned to the particular needs of international students. So that is not a worry. They know all the particular, you know, how to navigate finding companies that will hire international students for internships, for jobs
Mm-hmm.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Now we have the brand new world of being STEM designated. So there is 3 years of OPT instead of one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then dealing with filtering out companies that will sponsor people for H-1B visas and not. So it's definitely something you will get a lot of assistance with. We have, I think, one of the best career services offices there is.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's so. Is there any idea about? I know some time ago, uh, Hopkins reached out to find out, whether uh, those of us who graduated in 2020 have secured jobs, especially for the international students. Is there any data or any figure
Well,
you'd like to share about how many
we're up,
international students get job placements and at what
sure.
specific time post graduation?
We're up to 2022 now.
Mm-hmm.
So where should I go? The guest chat? I can
Yes,
drop a
yes.
link. I'll drop a link. This is the PDF of the employment report for 2022.
Okay.
Um, you'll see if you go there, you'll see there is a ton of data broken down in every way you could imagine,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and by both domestic and international.
Yeah.
We found in the past that there really isn't a big difference between domestic and international students finding jobs. Most of the international students that return to their own countries do so because they planned on doing so ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
They were either sponsored by their country or by their company, and so they had to go back to their home country. I found most over the years, most international students who have wanted to stay in the U.S. after graduation have stayed in the U.S.
Okay. Great.
You'll see that most students, when they graduate from Carey, tend to get jobs in the Middle Atlantic region, which
Mm-hmm.
is Baltimore, Virginia, and north on the East Coast,
Yeah.
and then followed by the West Coast. That's
Interesting.
because I think that's where most of the types of uh, healthcare, finance, and consulting jobs are, and
Exactly.
tech, and
Exactly.
tech,
Yeah. I think that
and
that
that's
that is. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's where most of our kids wind up, in those
Yeah.
areas.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so it means that most students eventually settle with health related organizations.
It varies from year to year. Consulting, health. I would say some years it's health, some years it's consulting, um, and some years it's tech.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of misleading to look at a pie chart, because we do have a small class size, so it only takes two people to get a different job the next
Mm-hmm.
year to make it look like a huge swing into a different industry. Um, but those, I would say, those are the top three every year: healthcare, consulting, and technology.
Awesome. Awesome.
And a
Awesome.
lot of times those overlap hugely: healthcare consulting, healthcare technology. So it depends on how they report it and how it breaks down.
Great. So with the STEM designation, how does that affect um international students in terms of searching for jobs, the timeline that somebody has to get employed in order to stay to continue legal status in the US.
The timeline's the same from what I'm told,
Okay.
and I don't know. Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what that is.
I think it's about
Um,
6 months.
6 months,
Yes.
and but so that doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
And as you all know, that just means that you can work in the U.S. for 3 years after graduation without an H-1B visa, instead of just one.
Yeah.
And it does have to be something related that would require your degree, that would require, by some definition, an MBA. So it couldn't
Yes.
be working as a barista in a Starbucks or something, or as a salesperson in a department store. It does have to be, by some stretch of the imagination, requiring an MBA, and the uh, um, immigration would have to buy that and sign off on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's also a good point to make. Your STEM designation or your STEM opportunity means that whatever program that you are using, the job that you get into should have some relation to the program that you've undertaken. You can't just switch, do an MBA, and then go completely to a different industry or sector where you will not be using your MBA skills.
Well, I
Um,
mean, and that it's a. I don't want to scare anyone. That's a very broad. That could be almost
yeah.
any industry. But like I said, it's got to be a high level professional job,
Mm-hmm.
not like a factory worker or any job just to stay in the US. It's got, and the same for your internship. When you do an internship in the summer between years 1 and 2, you can't, it's got to be a real, it's got to be a job that's related to your studies and an MBA. It can't just be any job.
Awesome. Awesome. We have one question from Audie. Audie wants to find out if they can reach out to you directly if they have
Of
questions
course.
about the admission process.
Of course, that's my job. That's my job. That's what I'm here for. There's my email. I just put it in
Yeah.
the chat room.
Uh-huh. Audie, so yes, Michael says you can reach out to him directly I'm posting his email on the chat. You can send him an email, but at least you shouldn't spam his email with questions that you can easily get answers for on the website. But reach out if you have any issues with that. So I have a student who is almost incoming MPH MBA. Wants to know when the Carey Business School will be ranked.
Good question. Get that a lot. To tell you the truth, I don't know. So here's what I do know. The school is not going to pursue rankings until the dean feels we're in a position to be ranked very well. When that happens, I'm not sure. We were in a trajectory to start that procedure sooner rather than later when COVID hit, and then COVID caused all kinds of issues with the things that schools are generally ranked with, and one of those is GMAT and GRE scores. That caused us and many other schools to start waiving GMAT and GRE scores left and right.
Okay.
And other issues. So all I know is for now, the dean and management council are looking to be ranked as soon as possible. But when that is, I have not been told.
Okay.
But I would also point out, I find it interesting that top schools in other areas are starting to pull out of rankings.
Exactly.
Law schools, all the big law schools have started pulling out of rankings.
Yeah.
And all the big medical schools have now started pulling out of rankings.
Yeah.
All the top ranked, not even the lower schools who could say, oh, they're doing it just because they're not ranked well.
Yeah.
The top ranked law schools, the top ranked medical schools have started saying, this ranking stuff is nonsense. We're not going to do it anymore. So whether that starts happening with business schools, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the trend, is schools, especially with U.S. news, schools are starting to turn their backs on U.S. news.
Yeah.
So perhaps it will be more things like the Bloomberg rankings or the Times rankings rather than U.S. news. But I don't know. I'm not in on those. I'm not in on the Dean's Management Council and part of those conversations. But I do find it interesting that one of the after effects of COVID is schools starting to say, I don't think these ranking things are very useful.
Yeah.
And that's the schools that were highly ranked.
Yeah. I know like a lot of people argue both ways, but let's see how it goes, whether they are going to pull out of all possible rankings or it's only the US news.
I was just at the University of Maryland the other day doing a presentation about our JD MBA, and this question came up, and the dean of the University of Maryland School of Law was there, and she was like, oh yeah, we just pulled out. And I was like, oh, really?
Anyway, yeah, so it's 11:15. If this is your first time of joining us, this is the Scholars Table. I'm with Michael Cuneo, who is a Assistant Senior Director of Admissions and Recruitment at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. We've had an extensive discussion on MBA application process, how decisions are made, funding, the program itself, and then job prospects after graduation. We'll continue with a couple of questions and then we'll call it a day. So keep your questions coming. Somebody wants to know if you have any idea whether Carey offers PhD in specific fields.
We do not have any PhDs, and as far as I know, there are no plans to pursue offering PhDs.
Mm-hmm. But how about any advanced program like MSc or something like that?
All the degrees we have now, is I believe, will be the only degrees we will offer in the future. We're
Okay.
going to stick with what we have and make them better all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Um, somebody wants to know what GPA is regarded as a safe net. Is there a cutoff for GPAs?
There's no official cutoff, but I would say what is safe, what will not raise anything a 3.0 or better is not going to draw attention to you. If you get below a 3.0, then eyebrows get raised and they start looking more closely at
Mm-hmm.
other things.
Okay. So if you want to be safe, get a GPA of 3. And
Obviously, if you don't have a 3.0 or better at this point, there's nothing you can do about that.
yeah, exactly,
So,
exactly.
what you
Mm-hmm.
need to do, well, and basically what you have to do, is get a really fantastic GMAT or GRE test
Mm-hmm.
to make
Mm-hmm.
up for
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're done with your bachelor's already, there's nothing much you
Nothing
can
you
do
can
about your
do about
GPA. So, if you know your GPA is slightly weak, then you would have to make sure that your GRE or GMAT is in perfect, or is good. You have good scores
it.
from your GMAT or GRE. Is there any preference for GRE or GMAT?
No preference.
Okay.
And what we're really looking closest at is that quant score on both of them.
Oh, okay. So quant scores are more important than.
More important than anything.
Okay.
I'm not
Got
saying do poorly on the verbal, but the quant score is what's most important.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Um, somebody wants to know whether they can gain admission with an HND.
No,
Nope.
that's you have to have the equivalent of a U.S. bachelor's degree.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
I know I just looked into what an HND is, and that is not equivalent to a U.S. bachelor's degree.
Yeah, yeah. Um. Anyway, okay. Thank you so much. I think the rest. Hi. This is a very informative session. Thank you, Michael Cuneo. Have a lot of compliments. Good stuff you're doing. Um, okay. Please share other questions. Okay. Somebody's also asking questions about MPH. I think we've dealt with MPH in detail in our subsequent discussions.
Yeah, I can't
So
help with that, unfortunately.
yeah, I think the person is still talking about GPAs. Yeah, I think whether MPH or MBA, a GPA of 3 and above is safe. Otherwise, you would have to make sure other parts of your application it's really strong in order to compensate for that weakness. Anyway, so I think we've exhausted our time. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, there are a lot of international students who are watching us, and it's good to know that they can easily reach out to you and get clarifications of questions that they don't have answers for. As Michael said, you don't have to assume anything. If you need a fee waiver, shoot an email. If you want to find out whether GRE can be waived or your language test can be waived, reach out and be sure about it. Don't just assume. Michael, any last words for our viewers?
besides thanking you so much for having me, I just want to remind everyone the final deadline for this year is March 27th, which is coming up in
Mm-hmm.
21 days.
Yes, yes. All right. So you will still, if you are thinking of applying for an MBA, you still have like 3 weeks to go, to put your materials together. So that is something you should keep in mind. Well, Michael, thank you so much, and
Thank you.
hopefully I'll get to see you when I come to Carey one of these days.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. Have a nice day.
You too, sir. Thanks a lot
Okay.
for having me.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye bye.
All right. So this session was with Michael, who is a senior assistant director of admissions at the Carey Business School. If you are planning to get an MBA or planning to get a dual MBA and MPH, then you should go and watch this conversation, because we delve deeper into the application materials, how to make your application stand out, the scholarships available, and the job prospects that you're likely to face as an MBA graduate. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Scholars Table. If you're new, kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow me on LinkedIn and also on Twitter. I'll definitely bring out something unique in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Your host, Dr. Banda Khalifa. Have the best of your evening.